You know, our fur babies are our kids. I mean, pretty much everyone's got one, and you always want the best care for them, just like we would for our human kids. Well, this is one of three that I have. This is Zoe. She's an 11-year-old Pomeranian, and when it comes time for her to get her checkups and everything, I bring her to the Handsboro Animal Hospital, Dr. Neely Gaddy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Give us a little bit of background about yourself. You come from a line of doctors, but the first vet.
Yes, that's exactly right. My dad and my grandfather are both doctors, along with many of my family members, but I definitely chose this on my own path.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Of course, you have to have a love for animals.
Oh, very much so. This job definitely takes a passion, but I've got it, and I love my job.
Well, she's taking care of three of mine. I have the two dogs, which I also have a Chihuahua, and a cat that had a dry skin issue and cleared up in no time, thanks to you.
Oh, that's great. I love to hear that.
Wonderful job. Let's talk about things that should do. I know it's the holidays here. What kind of foods are okay during the holiday? I know we like to sometimes spoil them and feed them from the table.
Yeah.
And sometimes that could be detrimental.
Definitely. There are some more detrimental foods, and then there's ones that are less detrimental. I definitely think that during the holidays it's important to know that the more that you feed them foods off the table, the more likely they are to come in here and end up having to get things like blood work run. Dogs can also get pancreatitis from high-fat foods, and it happens to be that Thanksgiving is full of high-fat foods. So definitely recommend not giving any table food. However, if you feel that you have to include them, some foods that you can feed that are not detrimental are things like raw green beans or sweet potato. Now, as long as they're not, that they don't have any pepper or salt or any kind of seasoning on them, they're perfectly safe for dogs in small amounts.
And one of the things that my two love are the green beans, which I make sure before I give them some before I season them for myself, and they love them.
That's great.
They love them. Of course, talking about the holidays, Doc, that means you're going to have a lot of guests in, and that's more apt for a dog to have anxiety problems. So what can you do to help that?
Yeah, if you already know that your dog is a more anxious pup, or your cat is more anxious, one thing that you can do to properly help them in that situation is to provide a place for them in your home that's a safe space. So somewhere where they will not be bombarded by guests or people that might touch them or put their hand on them that might make them nervous. So what I recommend is having maybe a room, and if you feel that they're extra anxious, you could put them in that room and allow them to have that space for themselves. Or if you feel that they like company, but it takes them a minute to kind of warm up, you can maybe warn your guests of that so that they don't kind of bombard them and put their hand on them. Instead, ignore them and allow them to come to you. As long as you give them space, they usually do pretty well. Yeah,
she is always wonderful about being friendly with any new guests that come to my place. And BB, the Chihuahua, she's a little bit anxious at first, and until she gets around, you get to know you a little bit. Weather's changing.
Yes.
How do you get your home prepared for cold weather for your pups?
Okay, that is definitely a great question. Oftentimes down here, the weather doesn't change so much so that you feel that you need to bring pets in, but when we get closer to December and January, when it drops below 60 degrees, I always tell people if they feel that their dog is uncomfortable to bring them in anyway, but anytime you're below 50 degrees, I would bring the dog in, and cats if you have them. Now, don't go touching a fractious cat, that's not a good idea, but if you can get a dog into a laundry room or a bathroom where they can't tear anything up or get into any medications or anything of that sort, allow them to have a towel to lay on. They're much more comfortable that way, and that way they're not too cold outside, and their water doesn't freeze and things of that sort.
And I always thought if your utility room had the hot water heater in it, that itself gives them some warmth itself.
Yes.
Whenever you have their bed set up in there. Let's talk about whenever you come in and bring one in and check them out. What you look for, what kind of things, and then also preventive medicine.
Sure. So some things that you can do at home for your own pet to kind of keep an eye on them, keep a hand on them, and allow you to find some things that might be changing with your dog as they grow older. So running your hands along a dog or a cat like this to try to find any lumps and bumps is a great way to find anything early. Another thing that I would always keep an eye on is the eyes, and also if you can check teeth like so. She doesn't like that very much, which some dogs don't. But as long as you can kind of take a look at the teeth and make sure there's not too much tartar on them, that's a great way to keep them healthy, because teeth are directly related to heart disease. And as long as you keep them nice and clean, it's a great way to keep them from getting heart disease.
Well, I mean, when we go to the dentist ourselves, you know, they'll check things with your you know, your teeth, and they'll tell you, well, you know, if you don't get this done, it could actually cause you some other health issues.
Definitely.
Same way with the animals.
It is. It's the same exact way. You always want to make sure the collar's on loosely enough to where you're not going to lose them if you use the collar for a leash purpose. And then run your hands along their belly and along their paws to make sure they have no growths or anything of that sort. And if you do, you can always bring them into the veterinarian and show that to them.
Right, right. Now, as far as preventive medicine.
Yes. Preventative medicine is just things like flea and tick preventative or heartworm preventative that are much, in the long run, cheaper than actually treating things like heartworm or treating a flea infection or
I know. I've
infestation.
heard of people talking about having to get their animals treated for heartworms, and it can be expensive.
It can be very expensive, and it can be hard on the dog as well, depending on the age especially. So what we recommend is to use preventative measures, so a monthly flea and tick preventative or a monthly heartworm preventative. We do also have options that aren't monthly that you can take, your dog can take, and it can be covered for 3 months or 6 months at a time. So
Which
that you
is
don't
what I
to
have
remember.
mine on,
Yeah,
the 3-month flea and tick medication, then a monthly heartworm medication.
Yeah, sometimes that's easier for people so they don't have to remember to give it monthly, and that's a great option for preventative medicine.
Okay. Are there any other animal besides dogs and cats that you work with?
No, in vet school we do learn about all of them, and we have to be able to come out of vet school and perform medicine on all of them. However, I chose to stick with companion animal. I have a big passion for cats and dogs.
Oh yes, definitely. And then you've got a great, as you know, doctors like to hear, a great tableside manner
great. Thank you.
or bedside manner. Oh, she is absolutely wonderful. That's why I do bring my children in. It's like getting her close up for her there. And then whenever you want, of course, make appointments or anything, what hours are you open?
We're open from 8:30 to usually around 4:30. We do stay until the last patient, however. Doctor's hours are 9 a.m., so we'll come in around 9 to check on your patient. And if you have any surgeries or any laser therapies, sometimes you can drop off early depending on the time that our receptionist is here. And if you're ever interested, you can always call the front desk and make an appointment.
What about weekends?
Weekends, we're open on Saturday until around lunchtime. We're not open on Sundays, but we have great emergency care here on the coast as well in Wool Market.
Okay. And boarding? You do boarding?
We do boarding, yes. We have boarding, and we have an incredible woman in the back that we love so much. She takes care of the dogs like they're her own. I would definitely give her my dogs any day to take care of.
Well, my fur babies are taken care of by Dr. Neely Gaddy. So, you know, if you need to make an appointment for your dog or your cat, what you need to do is call the number on your screen, and they are located on Pass Road in Gulfport, right across the street from Rouse's. It's Handsboro Animal Hospital.